Hey everybody, Wendy Clinky here from Blue Cat Studio. Welcome to another edition of Technique Tuesday. It is Tuesday, right? Like my days are all messed up. Anyway, welcome. So every week we cover elements of composition. I realized my hair is going to get in my face and in my paint, and that's not okay. So today's what we're going to cover in terms of composition is something called the S-curve. So every time you do a composition, especially if you're looking at doing something outdoors, a landscape, you know, it helps to kind of come up with a way to actually create and format it. So for example, for this one, you know, in the past, we'll just do a quick recap. Last week we did the cross, which is the concept of, y'all can sort of see that, huh? Let me grab a Sharpie. Let me grab a fatty Sharpie. Okay, let's try that again. There we go. So last week we did the concept of a cross, which was our sailboats. The week before we did the idea of an L, which was our lighthouse. It's kind of also sort of like a partial cross. I don't remember when we did it, but we also did the idea of a tunnel, which ended up being like a cool colonnade kind of thing. And then we've done sort of the pyramid. So today we're going to do what's called the S-curve. And that is basically where you have some sort of a meandering thing. And that kind of helps frame the composition. So for this one, I am thinking, because I'm really in the sunflower mood, and hey, just a little tiny bit, a sorry, I just got a text to totally sidetrack me. I want to do a little sunflower here for, you know, thinking of Ukraine and the timing. So we're going to kind of maybe do a little circle over in this section with our sunflower bit. Then I know I want kind of a winding road to sort of lead into some hilly bits. And, you know, maybe I'll keep that simpler like that. But there you go. You kind of have the S curve or the Z curve. Does that make sense? I hope that kind of makes sense. So that's what we're going to do on this next bit. So I'm going to go ahead, and that just helps sort of focus the eye, but I'm actually cheating because I also put something right up here in the foreground, which also draws the eye. This would be just as interesting or almost as interesting with just the S curve. However, I'm like, I really want to do a sunflower, so I got to find a way to like work it in. So I'm going to prime this with a magenta type color. Hey there, Linda. And so instead of grabbing our typical magenta, I'm just going to grab some razzleberry fruit or some fun pink from Deco Art Americana. You know, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just sort of sploosh it on. I'm going to go with a smaller brush than that. So I think in the name of kind of still working with a largish brush, I'm going to go with this guy who's probably a 5/8 inch. And I'm going to get water on it. So one of those loose brushes. So I wet down my brush so that maybe my paint will spread a little bit more smoothly. Because this is in Sketchbook, the paper tends to be, what am I trying to say? The paper tends to be very absorbent. Just had a thought. I was like, oh, I'm running out of room in my sketchbook. I think I'm going to do like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll do, what am I trying to say? Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm not going live in my page. What the heck? I'm such a ditz sometimes. I'm just live in my groups, which is cool. You know why? Because I was trying to experiment with a thing. So let me see if I can turn on my webcam and quickly go live. I wonder if I can do that. 2 seconds, because you know what? I know a bunch of people want to see this. And I have the wrong mouse. Do I have another thing I can use? Okay, here. I'm going to leave my face. I'm going to drop my face off. Okay, now you got sound, Linda. Thank you. Hi. So I was saying, when sometimes when I try new things, I like, and then realize I can't do new things at the last minute, or run out of time to make the new thing work, or the new thing doesn't quite work. I'm like, okay, quick, go back to the other thing, default, and then I've like fixed half the settings, but not the other settings. So that's what happened today. We're a little hot mess today. All right, so let's just sketch this in here. So this is mostly dry. I used water down, so I needed to dry it off a little bit with a dryer. We're going to add kind of a little circle here for our sunflower, just kind of knowing roughly where that center is. And then I know that I'm going to kind of have the petals sort of going off in here. So now we at least have a sense of there's going to be a big old sunflower in the corner. Very cool, right? Okay, and apologies to all of you who are hoping to get a text. My texting app is messed up, so I'm in the process of getting a new one, and I unfortunately have to work with a new vendor. So I should be able to roll that out, in the next couple days. Okay, so here we go. We'll kind of do a little something here, and then back. Oh, that's a lot of zigzag. All right, we're going to kind of have the road. That's a lot of zigzag. Do we want that much zigzag? I got to simplify that. Here, we'll just do that. Have it kind of disappear. Okay, so I'm just blocking stuff in, right? It doesn't even matter if I don't have it exactly right. What I don't like here is that just is right smack in the middle of the page. So I am going to kind of extend it out so it comes a little further like this. And then we'll kind of bring it like so. There. So this is our S curve. And I kind of have a little mountainy thing here. I could just as easily kind of cut it off with a horizon and have a big sky. In fact, maybe we can even do that. We'll say we've got a horizon and then a mountain. That'll kind of simplify things a little bit. Again, I just sort of end up with like a picture in my mind, and it's a great opportunity to just kind of, play with it, riff with it, take some artistic liberty. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue, just kind of in the center, but not fully. Again, I'm just kind of blocking stuff in. I feel like that's pretty good. And this was just the, I keep calling it cobalt, but it's in fact the ultramarine. You could just as easily use the high end stuff, but I really like this lower end stuff as well. I feel like this is pretty amazing quality. Okay, so I'm going to offload my stuff and give it a quick rinse just so that I don't have to deal with that extra blue. And why don't we block in? We're going to kind of block in the sunflower a bit. And I'll give it a blast in the middle. Actually, we're going to go dark to light. So we'll do the middle first and then sort of a dark base, and then we'll spread out from there. So you want to make sure you've got some kind of an orange. Really doesn't quite matter. Any old cadmium or traffic cone orange or orange flame will do. You want maybe a little bit of yellow. And don't forget to say hey if you're watching. Oh, hey there, Erin. It's good to see you guys. And then I'm going to grab some brown. This is bittersweet chocolate. You could just as easily use like a raw umber. It doesn't really matter. You just want kind of a nice warm brown. If you've got Van Dyke, awesome. I don't actually own Van Dyke brown, so I might add that to my collection. Oh, check this out. This is my brand new one. I think I told you guys I'm trying to do like a new, and we need some white on our palette just for giggles. I'm trying to get like one bottle of golden paint every single month so that by the end of the year I've got like a solid collection of like 12 colors. So we'll begin in the center, and I think I'm going to grab some real magenta from a not dead bottle. Oh, or do I only have dead bottles? Okay. All right. Magenta is like pure magic. So that just squeezed out. I would have put less on my palette if I could have, but you know what you can with what you got. Okay. So a little bit more of the magenta. So, here I was talking all about doing this background and not using my quinacridone magenta, but let's face it, quinacridone magenta is like pure magic. So I'm going to grab some brown. And so you notice, like when I'm mixing colors, I always grab from the little blobs here and pull it over here to do the mixing. was actually doing a paint party this weekend with a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds. I think there's 1 or 2 11 and 12-year-olds as well. And, you know, we're all taught in school to just sit there and mix the colors, but really, oh, hey there, Pam from Florida. Good to see you. But it's really much better, and you'd be a lot more effective when you take the color away from the core pieces and mix it elsewhere. All right. So I'm going to kind of come in and add some of this sort of yellowy color. And look, it's kind of a dark, funky tone. And again, we're going to trust this process here a bit. We are doing base colors, so we're kind of starting darker than we like, and we'll layer the lighter colors on top. So I'm literally just kind of smushing that color here. And you know what? This looks pretty ugly right now, right? We're okay with that. And you're literally just kind of pulling away from each edge here, and you can kind of keep it really rough. Does not have to be perfect. And those little bits of the other magenta that are peeking through will be nice. I'm going to give it a quick blast again. And thank you guys all for sticking with me through my slightly rough start today. Sometimes I just get a rough start, and it's okay. We're all like that, right? Alrighty, there we go. So this is me taking a quick break from my thesis because I'm towards the end of my master's degree. In fact, kind of dedicating all of, this afternoon and this evening and all of tomorrow to getting that thesis knocked out. So I grabbed some more of that brown. It's the bittersweet chocolate or raw umber, whatever you want it, plus a little bit of the magenta, and just kind of brought it over here into this warm mix. So you can see this was the brown I was using before, almost like a dark ochre color that I created for the outer portion. And now I'm just going to bring some of that darker color in here, and if little bits of and I'm going over that kind of blue and magenta. Now I know it seems weird that I'm layering all these strange colors, but sometimes when little bits peek through, it just creates, just to use a Bob Rossism, happy accidents. But it also allows us to have some kind of undertones. So now I'm going to grab a little bit more of that straight kind of brown color and kind of create a little bit more depth in the center. But I think I want to add maybe a little bit of the blue. Is that on camera? Yeah. A little magenta, a little bit of the brown. It's a really deep kind of almost purpley base, but I want to keep it warm. The magenta helps keep things warm. When I have the yellow and the orange in there, it tends to make it really light. And I like that color a lot, so I'm going to kind of come over some of this road with that because let's face it, we don't have blue brick roads. I mean, yellow brick roads maybe, but definitely not blue brick roads. So I'm just going to kind of cover that. Again, we're still in like major ugly zone, right? Yes, we are. We are in the ugly zone, and it's okay. Okay. So to create a green, I never like to use plain green, and when I do, it's usually a disaster. So we're going to grab some kind of a teal, right, or a turquoise. I have here cobalt turquoise, which is a pure pigment. This one's pretty awesome. It's a really rich color. The other favorite, which y'all know by now, if you've seen more than one of my videos, is Mermaid Tail Teal. I cannot escape the Mermaid Tail Teal. Like, just kind of always using it. So we'll squeeze a bit of the Mermaid Tail, and I get that at Hobby Lobby. I don't think Michael's carries it, unfortunately. So I still have all that brown and magenta and funky middle color stuck on my brush. I am not going to rinse it, and that is very, very purposeful. But y'all know this, right? I'll take the teal, and I'm going to kind of come over here. Whoop! And I'm going to grab some yellow, and I'm going to just start to mix. But I'm going to start to allow some of that kind of the color that's already on my brush to neutralize it a bit. Because when you take these two colors and mix them together, it creates like the most vibrant, gorgeous green. But that is not a color that's really realistic or one that you find in nature too much. So we have to kind of neutralize it and in some ways kind of dumb it down. So I'm going to kind of create a green, and we're really just kind of blocking in the colors here. So I would like it to be a little bit yellowier. There. See, now that's a little bit more muted, a little less like kapow. Still pretty intense though when you think about things. So I could grab a little orange to to warm and neutralize. A little bit more. Again, I love mixing colors. You can always grab stuff out of the bottle, but sometimes it's just more fun to actually do the thing. Okay, so I'm going to kind of take that green and just kind of start to kind of place it around the road. And I'm using kind of back and forth strokes, not focusing on full coverage, focusing on mostly covering and kind of allowing it to get a little bit streaky. Again, it's still a little weird looking, and that's okay. This will be ugly until we kind of get towards the end and pull it all together. So if you ever find yourself with a painting that you think is ugly, you can just tell yourself, well, it's not quite done yet. Right? Because it's not. You can just do some more. All right. So that's kind of given us a good base coat for this sort of foreground section. Hey there, Cassie. All right, I don't know if you saw my post, Cassie, but I tried to say all the time zones. I hope that helped. All right, so taking that mushy green that I've mixed, I'm going to add just a touch of the Mermaid Tail Teal to blue it down, to cool it a little bit. And then I'm going to grab some white and take that in as well. Now see how that has utterly shifted from like an olive drab to a mushy, almost like sort of a green you might find in a succulent plant. And I'm going to kind of fill those, kind of get some color in the mountains there. I think I'm going to grab a little bit of the blue, I keep saying cobalt, ultramarine, kind of bring that along here. Maybe a little bit more blue. And here's where I've already kind of got that funky ochre color for the petals, and it's just a base coat. So I'm going to add a little, it's okay to go over them a little bit just to add some of that like mountainy stuff. So let's see, kind of running low on the paint. So I'm kind of going tealy, cobalty, kind of allowing that to be a deeper color right at the horizon line. So again, still pretty ugly. We're getting there, guys. We are. And so I'm wanting sort of this sort of section here, which is like a flat field, to be warmer tones. And then I want the background to start to get a little cooler. Yeah. So Cassie, I'm having issues with my texting app right now. So I was trying to get that troubleshot fixed prior to going live. I was having some issues with that this evening. So I'm going to spend some time on that and get it fixed. But I probably am going to have to switch vendors. So I will try to send you guys kind of an intro text and get the word out, or do an email or something so everybody knows the new text number. And again, I apologize for having to change that out. They weren't offering all the features they said they were offering. And so I need to go with somebody who does the right thing, or has the good features. Okay, so I just added a little bit of lighter. I added some white to that kind of mushy color just to kind of fade those kind of mountains into the back. And the reason I lightened the mountains as opposed to what's here, and I shifted it to blue, is because you've got a lot more atmosphere. And so those are actually going to be a little bit harder to see through, assuming we have some level of thickness to the air. So I'm going to offload my paint. I've got an old textbook, actually not from my master's program, just something I got at the library. And it has like the perfect pages. And oh my gosh, you guys, you know how okay, I'm totally babbling here, but you know how some of you know, I really love to do like mixed media stuff. And I'm always looking for collage papers. Wow. My organizer lady, who's always getting people's cast off junk and having to figure out what to do with it, was like, hey, look at all these like really old, like antique books that are all in German. We're in America. Nobody's going to read them. And they're like falling apart, but they're gorgeous. In fact, there's like a Faust book. So I may be desecrating those and turning them into something interesting. All right. So here we are. We kind of have some funky colors. It's kind of coming together. Again, we're still very in the dark zone. It still feels muddy, and that's fine because we're layering. So I'm going to come in here again, grab a little bit more of the yellow, kind of wash it into the top portion of that green because I want to go a little springier, a little lighter. I'm going to bring little bits of that kind of. Notice how I'm just sort of brushing bits in. Oh, Linda, you said that's terrific. Is that about the books? I'll have to show those to you guys. They are, like, some of them are really amazing. And they've got these cool, just like occasional little graphics. I may save out like one or two of them because a friend of mine's a bestie. She speaks German. And she may just like have a fit if I cut them all up. I might be like, well, you can pick one, but I'm going to take the rest. So notice I'm adding kind of like little bits of the lighter green in there. Maybe you've got too much border here. So I'm going to bring kind of some of that green out here while allowing the deeper green to also show, and still some of that magenta background. But it just allows this path to kind of feel dappled and have like a range of things going on. I'm also working in this zone here while I'm allowing, oops, cat hair, while I'm allowing some of the thicker portions of this deeper area to dry. Okay, so I'm going to offload, and let's do a little something in the sky. So here's a question, my people. Should we do like just a normal daytime sky, or do you want to see a sunset? You vote. We'll do what you want. Or what weird color should I incorporate into the sky and pull it off? Should we do hot pink or light blue or purple or orange? What color sky? And it's okay if you throw me a curveball. We'll figure this out. It might take me a second, but I want to see you guys vote. So text right now. Let me know. What do you want me to do for the sky? Should I try to pull off orange? Should I? Oh, let's see. Linda says, I love stuff like that. A friend of mine, Cassie, votes for purple. Of course you do, Cassie. A friend of mine recently gave me a bunch of fashion magazines. Oh man, that's cool. My only issue with fashion magazines is they tend to get, at least for me, what am I trying to say? They tend to be glossy, and I struggle with the gloss. Okay, let's do purple. I haven't seen any other votes. Oh, okay, Facebook user. That's probably Holly. Huh? 2 votes for purple. Okay, so I'm going to do that. We're going to mix my purple. So quinacridone magenta, mermaid tail teal. CMYK, only we don't like the K. K is black. But C is cyan, Y is yellow, M is magenta. So I just created kind of almost a kind of cobalty blue. So we're going to add a little bit more of that magenta to create a good purple tone. And I think I'm going to go in the warmer reddy, almost like plummy. And that's very, very dark. That's very, very dark, but good. We've at least created the base color, right? So once we've got that, I will just kind of offload a bit here and grab a chunk of white and start to mix in. All right, so we have got a good base of purple, and that is pretty darn purple. So we'll use that as our starting tone. Still a little on the neutral side, which is fine. And I'll take that kind of along the top up here. Again, I personally am feeling like this piece is got a lot of mud going on, but we're going to work in that slowly. So I'm going to grab a little bit more magenta and warm it up. A little bit more white to lighten it up. Going to bring some of that in here. A little bit more white. So what I'm doing, because skies often are really cool when they're kind of a mishmash of like colors, it's just taking, kind of adding white or toning kind of within the range of what we're already working with. So sometimes adding a little bit more magenta, a little bit more white. Oops, apparently grabbing corners of the darker purple. Over here, we'll get a little magenta glow in that section there. Purpling. So here's where I am going to kind of just go over some of those ochre portions of the flowers, because trying to paint around that and have a nice like flowing sky is going to be a royal pain in the you know what. Okay. I keep grabbing corners of that darker purple. All right, we're good. All right, so we've got a mostly purple sky there. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that deeper tone. Bring it across the top here. So maybe it's not quite a nighttime sky, but feels like it's kind of dusking out on us. So I'm going to take a little more white. Just kind of blend, because this is feeling pretty dark to me. Oh, Linda says she's digging the jewel tones. You know, it's kind of fun, like to just mess with this stuff. And all right, so this is where we are so far. Again, still a little bit ugly, but we are getting there, right? I love, yeah. This is still wet. Wow. So I'm going to rinse my brush and dry it. And I think I'm going to switch gears and work in the yellows for a little while and start to build out the sunflower. And then we can add a little bit more to the rest of it as we go. But I think I've got a pretty good base for the sky. And so when we're doing the flowers here, the petals, we're gonna really want to go a warm yellowy orange. I almost need more space. Okay. So this section here, we've already had some pre-mixed colors from earlier. There's a little bit that's still there, that's wet. Most of it is dry. So I'm going to take a chunk of the yellow, and this is daffodil yellow from Folk Art, and I'm going to bring it over here, and I'm going to allow that little bit of wet color to kind of blend in here. And I want to orange it up a smidge, just, you know, keep it kind of popping warm. I think actually we're gonna layer it up a little bit at a time. So compared to what's already there, we've got a pretty solid, that's a definite difference. So I'm going to just kind of come in and add some yellow. And I'm just kind of placing the brush on its side and kind of wiggle jiggle and pulling it, right? It doesn't have to be super accurate, just kind of pulling. Maybe a little bit in the a little bit more. I gotta make some more. See if I can pull some of that brownish tone in there to kind of neutralize. And there we go. Just sort of like, oh, what other colors do I have that I can grab to kind of get that where I want it? Because that yellow all by itself is so intense. So we really do need to kind of tone it a little. And then just a couple of little bits. I'm coming right up against my blue tape. It's just painter's tape from Lowe's, y'all. Nothing special. Although I think you can buy the fancy stuff at Michael's, but this is what I had in loads, because funny, when you like to paint, sometimes you like to paint. Anybody else actually like to paint houses? I kind of dig it. So I'm now going to kind of fluff up my brush by treating it very rudely, just like rah. What I'm looking for is to get the bristles to spread, because then I can kind of come in here and leave little bits of yellow kind of on parts of that center. So I have a darker section here, and then I'm putting just little dabs of yellow on it to kind of show some of the pollen that's in the black part of there. And this is kind of before the seeds have really formed, right? So it's still gathering its pollen and stuff. But oh, I really like that yellow we had. So let's make this kind of a field of sunflowers. But since we're not actually drawing individual sunflowers, we're just going to kind of add some yellow blops. And we don't want this to be just on one side of the road. So we're doing the slightly larger blops on the front, and we'll let them go in fairly thickly. And then kind of as we come back here, we're going to allow the blops to get a little bit smaller. Maybe even allow just kind of the bristles to kind of just leave a mark. Because again, we have this sort of the foreshortening concept where they're bigger as you get closer. So this guy's like right in our face, and maybe we're on like a small mountain. We've got this one guy, we've captured him in frame, and then we're kind of looking out over this scenery. So I'm just going to try and use all the last little bits of paint that are kind of stuck in my brush. And I think I can kind of get away with just like little like brush lines, you know, and just getting smaller and skinnier as you kind of go back. So it's maybe like a long, just rolling fields and fields and fields of these sunflowers. I don't know if there's any up on the hills. We're gonna say there's none on the hills, right? That works. That's what I'm thinking. So we're here again. We're still kind of in the base notes. We got a few more layers to do to kind of pop this up. What we have here is we've got kind of a nice, clash of color, which I like. We've got the cool up top and then the warmer kind of coming down at the bottom. So now just to go right on top of it, I'm going to grab another hunk of that yellow, bring it in here, a little bit of the orange to keep it warm. So I love the daffodil yellow because it's very easy to keep cool and warm up. And then a little bit of white. All right, that's like school bus yellow we just mixed. We can kind of come in over this, or even in between and next to it, just add some more yellow. And I'm kind of almost like taking those petals, placing them and kind of jiggling them, and you can go kind of in between or right over top, partial overlay or overlap, sorry, partial not overlap. Some flowers tend to have a lot of layers of petals. So you can kind of get away with doing a range of stuff. Linda says crazy good. Wah, thank you. And since some of these yellow sections are kind of fading into the background, I'm going to go over, or they're a little bit more transparent, I guess, than I'd like. I'm going to just kind of blop in a little extra. I think back here, well, just little tiny bits. Not as much bright yellow in the background, but a few bits. And again, it's going to be much brighter in the foreground. And then as it goes back, it's going to kind of fade and be less and less prominent. Again, these are sort of amorphous blobs, but I am good with that. And then maybe just a couple more blobs in here. I don't know, just a little something. And so I don't know if you can see that, but little bits of the cobalt blue or ultramarine blue and even the magenta that we primed with are peeking through. I'm okay with that, right? It's really subtle, but it just sort of is there. Another color I've been known to use, kind of in the shadows of these, is almost a purpley. That's kind of fun. Okay. So now we've got that. Let's go ahead and I think we do one more layer on these guys, but this time, because it's starting to get busy and there's a lot of petals happening, we want to kind of simple down a little. I want just a touch of yellow right in here. Okay. So right on top of this color, a little bit more of that daffodil yellow to brighten it just a smidge more. Kind of create some highlights with a touch of white. But again, we want it to still stay warm. So I'm letting it pick up some of those orangey tones. But it should be lighter, a little bit more white. You have to be careful. If you get too much of this highlight on, then you suddenly are like, well, what kind of sunflower is that, right? And then we'll just kind of add some little bits in here and there. And you can even just kind of pick sections and add a few here and there. Like right in here feels very, I don't know, not flat's not the right word, but just like it needs a little something. So grab a little bit more white, lighten up a bit more, keep it dynamic. You can even just kind of add little dots kind of at the base and then allow some of those petals to be darker. So then you've got kind of rings and rings of color happening, which make it feel like you've got a sunflower there. And again, just a few bits and bops of that lighter yellow in amongst here. It's kind of slowly but surely coming together. I'm going to offload my yellow, I think. Oh, yeah, no, hold on. Just a couple more bits here. Beep, 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 beep. Don't forget your sound effects. You got to beep and boop and bop and all the things, because does anybody else make sound effects as they do their things? I can't help myself. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to admit I just got, let me see, what's that look like there? I got some extra light yellow in a couple of key spots here. I really am liking right there and right there. So I'm going to use a couple more of those to help kind of add some, I don't want to overdo it, but a little bit here and there to kind of emphasize that road. Yeah. Just a little chunk in there, a little chunk in there. Oop, got a little bit in there. That's not quite what we wanted. Okay. Cool. I'm going to offload. So now we have this road here, which is still kind of a bluish purple. It's a little problematic, to be honest. And I'm also just kind of squinting at this thing, like looking at like, what do we got going on? Where are we at? I like the depth of this, but I'm not sure about the color. So I'm going to grab some of that purple, kind of come over here, and then maybe grab some of my yellow. No, I need to go more neutral than that. So I'm going to add some magenta too. I'm just going to mix like I'm going to mix a color. A neutral kind of in between everything color. So I'm kind of trying to grab all the clashy colors, the stuff that doesn't really work together. That's what we're mixing. It's too green, so I need to add the red to, added too much. All right, you guys, my mixing skills are not with me today. Okay, so that's basically a mix of the cyan, magenta, and yellow. That is darn ugly color. Oh, Cassie, you thought that was water? You know, it could be water. It could be water. It could be a road. Oh, let's make it water. Let's make it water. Okay. So I'm going to add some of the, I'm going to go right into the blue then. And thank you. We're going to make it water. So I added the blue to that brown because that's really usually the blue color that you see when you see blue. Oh, Pam says, I didn't know you were on Facebook and YouTube Live. Yeah, I'm using an app called StreamYard, which allows me to stream in multiple places. I can usually just stream to 3, and I accidentally forgot to stream live to my page. So then I had to add a second camera. So I'm seriously praying like crazy that praying like crazy that I have the bandwidth to be pushing out all this stuff. All right. So I'm taking that kind of weird, funky blue mishmash color, kind of putting it right over the purple. I'm not covering all of it. I'm just kind of zigzagging. And now let's see what happens if we take some white and mix a little of that over here. And see how muddy, funky that is. That's a gorgeous, muddy, funky color. We're going to just kind of put some little bits in here. So I want this to still feel kind of dark. So I'm adding some of the light bits to it. Actually, I like the fact, thank you, Cassie, for telling me that it's water, because you've just given me permission to not have this be a perfect even road. Because, you know, rivers get wide and narrow. Of course, when they get narrow, they get fast. This is a lazy river. All right. Sorry, I got to change the angle here so I can see what I'm doing. It's all right. It's something. I'm going to go kind of back in a few more dark tones. All right, and then I'm going to give that a second to dry. Or maybe we'll just blast it. And then we want to reflect a little bit of the sky in there. But I wanted to kind of preset like what color shows up in the shadows, and then we want to reflect the sky. So I really actually have to have purple water. Oh, Pam says, this painting is really developing quite beautifully. Well, thank you. All right, we're about 40 minutes in. So usually, you know, Technique Tuesdays, I'm always trying to show something. So we've been covering the elements of composition. And today's, you know, topic is really the S curve. And it's one way to kind of, when you're not sure what you want to paint, you can go through all the different archetypes and say, okay, well, S curve, well, that could be a river, it could be a this, it could be a that. Let's try something based on that. And so sometimes it's just a great way to kind of figure out what the heck you want to paint, or be another way to kind of develop your concept. So I'm going to grab some white. I think I've got still, some of this is still wet. I rinsed and dried my brush. I'll pull a little bit of that magenta in, a little bit of that purple in, a little bit more white. There we go. So I think I want that to be even lighter. Sorry, I just got to tune this. All right, since I was thinking road, I now have to kind of mentally change my perception here to water. But since this is water, it means it's going to, in a few spots, kind of start to reflect the sky. I love it when you guys tell me what you want to see and we just do it. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. I'm going to try and win it today. So I'm grabbing little kisses. So I kind of on my brush, I don't know if you can see that. I have got, I'm going to hold this up to my various cameras. I've got more magenta on one side and more kind of lighty purple on the other side. So magenta here and the lighter purple here. And I'm going to kind of use that to drop little spots of deeper magenta and then the lighter purple spots. And maybe a little bits of darker purple, kind of in some of the corners and the other sections. A little more white. I'm going to come in here. Oops. So because this is flat, I'm really making sure that all my strokes are back and forth. They're parallel to the horizon line. So this is fairly glassy, kind of lazy river that we've got going on. Now I just got a little bit too much. Here, let me tilt that so you guys on Facebook can see. It's getting a little busy in this zone. So I'm going to pull a little bit more of the magenta in. Oh, too much. I just thought I had all magenta and it turned out all white. There we go. So you don't want it to, you want to kind of really vary the color a little bit to kind of, so you sort of feel like you are reflecting. Now what I see is back here. I think we want to kind of pull. So I'm assuming the river is, you know, it's probably coming down through the hills through some crack there, but now it's just sort of lazing this way, or maybe it's coming from off stream over here. I don't know. I'm going to allow it to just kind of disappear into the horizon line, kind of just right here. And so thinking about rivers, you know, if we've got a mountain that kind of goes like this and it kind of, and there's maybe a valley in between or a divot between the two hills, that could very well be where the water's coming from. And then it just kind of comes to here. So take another look here. What do we got? Actually works pretty well. There's a few more spots. Ah, you know what we need? We need some dots. We need some brown dots. Where's my brown? Okay. I don't know where my brown bottle went, but I'm going to grab my brown tube. Raw umber. Close enough to bittersweet chocolate. Good enough for government work, right? Close enough. I'll float your brush a little bit. I don't think I need to rinse. Oh, maybe. I've got a little bit of white in there. For those of you who've been painting with me for a while, you know I'm kind of like allergic to rinsing my brush. So I grabbed a smidge of yellow. I'm just going to kind of come over here. Oh, that's too much yellow. I'm trying to create just a really warm brown. And I didn't want to just go straight out of the tube. But maybe I will. Warm it up just a little bit more. Okay. So just kind of creating a brown, and I'm going to kind of come in on some of these, just kind of add a few little just dots. And there is no accuracy going on here. That's not, you know, carefully placed. I'm just sort of blopping from the corner of my brush in a bunch of spots to kind of simulate the idea of a field of sunflowers. I'm only doing it in this section right in here, because these are all much, much smaller. You're not really going to be able to see them. There's my brown. It's like, where'd it go? And if you feel like your dots, your center dots are getting too linear, just flip the brush over and even make like almost like a baby X, or just kind of dab a few spots. Now, what do we think? What do we want here? Okay, so When I squint at this, I still feel like it's very flat. I mean, it's not bad. Offload my brush, and I think I'm feeling like my mountains maybe want a little tiny bit of help. I'm gonna keep our lazy river fairly simple. I'm gonna grab some of this teal and just kind of create a little something out of the cobalt. Well, maybe I can grab some of that darker whatever I got going on here and just kind of bring that guy. What do I want to do? I think I want to lighten a little on this guy. Just gonna grab a cheapo brush. A little white, throw it in here. A little white, throw it in here. I'm just going with a smaller brush now because I think I want to just place a few bits of light without going too much. And what if we do like a way lighter white light? Let's see. Let's try that. I'm gonna do a couple of these really pale yellow bits, just dotting. There we go. Just dotting a little. So I'm thinking, okay, if you're wondering, like, what is she doing? What is she thinking? What's she struggling with? I'm looking at this and feeling like some of my values in terms of lights and darks, like I'm a lot in the middle tones. And then, so I'm just trying to get a little bit more contrast, build some contrast into the composition. So one way I could do that would by having a lighter sky. But if we're sort of going for a dusky look, then, maybe I can just add a little bit more lightness into the foreground here. It's feeling a bit busy. Again, these are kind of on the fly. I generally have like a concept of what I'm doing. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Just add a few more of the lighter guys. Just a few. But I sometimes have a reference photo, often don't. And a few extra lighter dots, kind of just to help around the rim there. Yeah, so then we've got a little bit of sort of the glow coming from behind it, little bits of the magenta showing through. I don't have quite as much orange in here as I would like. I don't know if I can bring some orange in without making it crazy, but maybe a couple of just kisses of orange, just kind of in the center. Oh, I guess I should rinse that other brush so I don't ruin it, huh? Yeah, so just kind of warming it up a little by adding some dabs of orange in here. Keep it irregular, right? We don't want it to be super predictable. Little bits of orange in the center. What is though? Sorry, alarm. Oh, hey there, Cindy. You're a little late, but hi from South Carolina. Nice to see you. Oh, here we go. Some orange. We want some orange in the foreground. I'm going to add some orange to these guys, but that is way too loud and crazy in orange. So sometimes, you get to this point and you're like, all right, we're real close, but it's not quite where I wanted it. So I'm doing some minor tweaks to just kind of make it feel right. So kind of finding a good orange, and then just going to add a little bit of kind of a tangerine tone in a few spots. And hopefully I'm not like making this overly busy. I don't know that it's helping. Maybe I should just take some like red and put some red in there. That's really where I'm like, oh, let's just add the magenta. Here we go. We're going to add some magenta undertones. We'll add some magenta in the centers here. Just a touch. Why magenta? I don't know, because it pops, and sometimes it's fun to make the shadows and the dark parts like kind of go kapow. So just a few little blops so I'm doing a few blops of the magenta inside the sunflower. Again, that just kind of livens it up. And I'm trying to stick to this side here where it's deeper shadows. And that's one of the, I don't want to call it a trick, but that's a favorite thing for me to do, is add a little bit of an intense color that's somewhat unexpected. In some ways, for me, it kind of emphasizes the shadow. And so maybe in a couple parts of the water, we'll add a little bit more intense magenta. kind of over some of these shadowed areas anyway. I need to tweak a little here. I got a little overboard, but I think this is kind of getting us closer to where we want it to be. Yeah. Linda says, let's face it, you love magenta. Yes. Yes, I do. I love magenta. I love magenta. But plus it does cool things to a picture. I feel like it just kind of makes everything go, hi. So I'm just trying to salvage like a little bit of magenta, purple. Oh, there's a pretty color. And sometimes I wonder, am I just going blind? Because like I walk into my kids' bedrooms and they have like all the lights off and they're reading. And I'm like, how do you even do that? I need like all the ring lights and everything just so I can see what's going on. Okay, so bringing a little bit of the magenta across some of these. I don't want it just at the edges. So I'm just kind of tuning. All right, I feel like if I go much further, I'm going to overwork the heck out of this guy. That was not bad. It was kind of fun. Yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you give it a try. I don't feel like we really need a tracer for this one because you kind of saw me draw it, and it's basically do a circle, do a horizon line, create a kind of a wavily waggly mountain, and then do your S or a Z. In fact, this one's a Z curve, not an S. And then, blop it on. But yeah, isn't that funny? Magenta really does kind of make everything say hi. So if you have any questions, let me know. I should be getting my texting app and stuff all fixed up in the very near future, and I will publish that out. And for those of you who've already texted me, I think I should be able to kind of send you guys some heads up texts so that you are aware of the new number. And I'll let you know, hey, this is Wendy, this is my new number, all that stuff. So I love you all, and thank you for joining, and we will see you on the next one. If you are not yet following or subscribed or like the page, do so. That way you're more likely to get notified anytime I go live, but you can often find me here on Tuesdays and Thursdays until the schedule changes, which, it happens from time to time when you're a mom. So, all right, you guys, it's been real. Have a great one next time. Bye.